Andy, how much playing time do you expect that Alvarez will get here?
Not a whole lot, and that's the way it should be. Look, I'm to understand from the rundown that I was emailed by our producer Simon that some of you guys inside are going to disagree with me on this. So respectfully, I find it hard to find a single argument why Francisco Alvarez should play much in the major leagues right now, and that's because, as Buck Showalter pointed out about 750 times in his pregame availability, Tomas Nido is a borderline elite defensive catcher, so the loss of Omar Narvaez is actually pretty big. It's significant for the Mets. He was impressive on both sides of the ball. He's a former All-Star, and what Narvaez and Nido both do really well is frame pitches. They're both in the top 7 of the league in pitch framing, and they both have that presence, that veteran experience in calling games and working with pitchers. Showalter and Billy Epler both regard the profile for catching as primarily a defensive position. Now, if you wanted to argue that it should be a position because you have Alvarez where there's a little more offense that could be involved, well, Alvarez hasn't shown that offense yet. He struck out in a third of his plate appearances in spring training, 40% of his plate appearances when he got to AAA last year. He's not a guy who's demonstrated the ability to make regular contact with the baseball above AA. And again, when you're trying to replace what you're really losing in Narvaez, you need Nido in there as much as possible to frame pitches and to work with the pitchers. So it's not time for Alvarez to be in the big leagues, very clearly. He's here in an emergency. He needs to occasionally DH, catch every once in a while, and really just let Tomas Nido run that pitching staff.
Andy, I hear you, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I would just like to see this guy play a little bit, because if he's up here and he's stewing on the bench, then how is that affecting his development? How is that benefiting him or the Mets long-term, short-term, at all? Look, I realize that there would probably be a 40-man roster issue here. I don't think Michael Perez is on the 40-man roster, so they would have had to make a move to get him on, to call him up instead of Alvarez. But if they intended to just have Nido start the whole time, maybe that was something that they should have explored and considered, and let Alvarez catch and develop in the minor leagues then, because that seems to be the plan. Look, they said one of the things that he wasn't going to be in the major leagues to start the season was because he had to go down and catch every day. Well, now he's not catching every day. So how is that working for Francisco Alvarez and the Mets as we move here?
It's not. I mean, they're making a big mistake here. I don't care what they say. If he's not ready, then he shouldn't be here. If he's here, he's got to play. He may not be ready, but if he's here, you got to give him an opportunity. Otherwise, go with Michael Perez and keep Francisco Alvarez down. JJ, would you let him DH here, or you want to see him as a primary catcher to try to develop his game both defensively and offensively?
I do a little bit of both. Look, to Andy's point, I wouldn't put Francisco Alvarez and Max Scherzer every fifth day. Like, that just has disaster written all over it. But at the end of the day, to your guys' point, if Francisco Alvarez is going to be here, and they did not bring in another catcher, he needs opportunities behind the plate. I'm catching him at least 2 days a week. At least.
Yeah, and look, if he's here, he needs to play. It's not that the fans want to see him. I get it. But if he's here, he needs to play. Otherwise, go down to the minors. Bottom line, he needs to play, wherever it is, here or down in the minors.